Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Power Half Hour Unstoppable Business Owner. I'm your host, Dorothy Odell, for this evening. Just want to give a shout out to our sponsor of today's show, Owen Sharp, with his book, The Great Flood of Bovenland. If you have a child or a grandchild between the ages of 1 and 7, this is definitely a book you want to get your hands on. Great, filled with adventure, and the colors and illustrations are absolutely just stunning. So get your copy today on Amazon. I am extremely stoked to bring to the stage Jackie Bailey. Jackie, welcome to the show. And it's her birthday today, so happy birthday, ma'am.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
you've had an incredible day. I know we were talking a little bit backstage, and you'll eat her chocolate after we're done, dark chocolate after we're done here tonight.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a pretty average day, but you know what? As long as no drama has happened today, it's a good day.
Any day that's drama-free is a great day.
Exactly.
Totally 100% agree with you. But we're here because you are such an amazing lady. I met this woman briefly, and then it's like we've known each other forever. But for those of you who have no idea who Jackie is, Jackie, share a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, and whom you serve.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Dorothy. I really appreciate it. I am an international conversation coach for kids and adults, and I'm a TEDx speaker. I'm a world champion speaker. I'm an author of 6 books, and I am a mentor to hundreds of kids around the world, helping them to learn public speaking skills and then putting them on stages, delivering their keynotes, TEDx talks, and authoring books, you name it. And that's what my mission is, and that's what I do.
What made you decide to get into that?
Oh gosh, it wasn't really a decision as much as it was a way to heal from my childhood abuse, where I was silenced with being told not to tell what was happening to me on a very chronic basis from probably around the age of 8 through my teenage years. And being silenced like that, it took a lot away from me. I didn't know who I was or what I could have been. And I just survived every day, not really thinking about a future. And it wasn't until I was an adult woman and another child was in danger that I had to use my voice and let people know what was going on so that someone else did not have to live with the same fate I had. And when I broke that silence, it was the first time when I realized I actually had something important to say. And what I said saved the life of another child and brought attention to the abuse that was happening generationally in my family. And so today I do what I do because I don't want children to be silenced in my presence or under my stewardship. Right. If I can do anything to help a child to feel empowered to speak up, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow, I got chills up and down my entire spine just listening to that. And sorry that happened to you. And thankfully you were able to find your voice. And I find since I started this, especially with the shows and things like that, I never used my voice until now. And then it was just empowering to say, wait a minute, I'm not the only one going through this, but how can we help others to get past what they're going through, right? And when you go through those moments, it's just like, well, why me? But why not us? Because we're the ones that we know we're gonna. No one should be suffering in silence. Everybody should be able to, break free and get the help that they need. And wow, that is powerful.
Well, and you know how you feel when you know someone's hearing you? Often, especially with the advent of these cell phones, these mini computers that we walk around with all the time, we're often, I don't know about you, but I'm often talking to people who are texting someone else at the same time they're having a conversation with me. And I obviously am not being listened to. And it's not a fun feeling. It's not a good feeling. And I think, well, I'm going to try to avoid having anyone in my presence feel that way too, to help them to feel like I'm looking at them, I'm focusing on them, and I'm present with them in that moment. And it can do so much to just acknowledge to someone that they do have a value and that someone enjoys listening to them. And I think those are the basic needs that we as humans have, is We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be respected. And our kids are often not any of those. At least from their perspective, they don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. And in many ways, they're not being respected. And so if we can give them even just an occasional opportunity to feel those things, I think it will help them to be better leaders in the future and to stand more on their values and their principles now when they really need to.
Absolutely. Man, that was just so much. You see so many people, even in the restaurants, you're supposed to be having dinner together, and they're one or both of the spouses are on their phone. I hate that. I mean, not
Yeah.
to say that I've never done it to my husband, especially when you're in the thick of negotiations on a deal or something like that. But I am just like, man, that you see more and more of it. Children's on phone, and I think we got away from everybody sitting down having dinner at the table and listening to each other. And I really crave that. I wish we could go back to the Sunday dinners where everybody was around the table and having that. And I love what you said. It's You don't feel heard or appreciated if somebody's on their phone while you're talking to them.
Right.
And unfortunately, I have done that myself. I can't say that I haven't.
Right.
But when we catch ourselves doing that, at least have the courtesy to apologize and give your full attention to what it is that the other person's saying. That is so important.
We've all done it. And we've all done it. I mean, that's the day and age that we live in, right? It is a convenience having that phone with you. You can take calls, you can make calls if necessary. I think there's some value in our kids having that sort of safety now where they could get a hold of parents anytime they need to. Yeah. But like anything else, it can be abused if we're not careful. So use it for the advantages that it gives us, but also be aware of when it becomes a liability and we're not present with the people that matter the most to us. And so I think we just all have to be more aware of those opportunities to put that down and pay attention when we need to. That's all.
Absolutely. It's funny you said that because I don't remember what age I was when I got mine growing up, but I know I was like 19, 20. We ended up getting a cell phone for our 12-year-old because we decided we'd give him more leeway and allow him to walk to school. And his mom was like, well, I want him to have a cell phone just in case something happens.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay.
It's a tough decision. It really is because okay, this could be abused. And when your child has something like that, that means people can sneak into their world that maybe you don't want in their world. So there definitely has to be some safety measures in place. And I think it's helpful if there's an agreement between parents and child to say, this is how you can use the phone. This is how we don't want you using the phone. And if you disobey or break those rules, then there'll be consequences. Maybe you won't have your phone for a month or something like that. But when I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones. I grew up when dinosaurs were still roaming the earth. And I remember just getting on my bike and riding off and forever out into the desert where I lived in Arizona. And sometimes I didn't come home until it was close to dinner time. And I never had to worry about that. I don't think my parents ever wondered where I was. And we just had so much freedom then. I don't think our kids have that much freedom today. And so it's nice, I think, to maybe have that opportunity to contact them if needed, just to check in and say, how are you? Where are you? You okay? That kind of thing. That I think there's a lot of what am I saying? Peace of mind in that with our kids we still want them to be kids, right? But to be able to contact them if we need to, I think that's helpful. But again, anything that's good can also be abused if we're not
Exactly. No, I totally am on board with you on that. And it's funny. I laughed when you said dinosaur because I volunteered at a woman's house last week, and one of the topics was I was talking about past traumas, and it took me 40 years to figure out why I hate being questioned. If somebody questions
Mm.
me, I absolutely hate it. And it's because it stems back from when I was little. We didn't have car seats back then. So my brother actually got booted out of the car, my grandmother's car, and got, I don't know how it happened. And I was questioned because they all thought it was me. And she says, wait a minute, they didn't have car seats back then. And I was like, out of all of that, that's what she got.
That's what she got out of it.
Yes, that was 40 some odd years ago. 40, well, I'm 47 now, so around 40, 45 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, so when you said dinosaur,
I know. I remember as a little kid, I was standing on the seat, the car, next to my mom while she was driving. I was standing next to her while she was driving the car. I mean, that's how far back I go.
My husband said the exact same thing, and he's 1 year older than I am. So I'm just like, see, it just goes to show the difference. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you allowed? We would be put in jail for child endangerment, and we would never. Our CAS would have our kids.
Yes,
I'm not sure what it is called in the States, but here it's called CAS, Children's Aid Protective Services, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so crazy how time flies and how things have changed over the years.
Yeah. It's hard to keep up with the changes when you're old like me. Because what used to be normal is now like politically incorrect. And you're like, okay, I got to try to keep up with this as best I can.
Right.
So, yeah.
I totally get you. I said to my dad, how in the world did you raise us? Because I'm used to old school, thumb on the kids. Kids are to be seen and not heard, all this stuff. That's how we grew up. And I'm like, how? So I try to raise my stepson like that. And it's just like, there is none of that. And my dad says, well, you can't raise kids the same way I raised you. I'm like, well, I know no other way. So.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways,
you know,
we could do a TEDx talk on this for sure.
Well, we are in a very interesting period of time in that there are people like me on the planet who had no computers, no cell phones, and we actually wrote letters to each other that we went and mailed with a stamp on it, to the kids today that have only had these devices. I mean, they've never known a world without this ability to have information at your fingertips within seconds. And then we have the in-between generation, which are the parents who are also now using the internet for just about everything, and they're raising their kids accordingly. So there are these three different generations here coming from very different perspectives. And I think there's so much that we can learn from each other if we take the time to, if we can respect the advancement that, like, I have 4 grandchildren, and the way that they're learning and how they're learning is so much different than me, but I can appreciate that because I use the internet too, and I can see how valuable that is for them. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of it, there was something really tangible about having to pull an encyclopedia off the shelf and look up something that you needed for a report. It took a little bit more energy and retention of that information than kids do today. So I think that there's some things they can learn from the old people like me in how to study and retain information. So there's a lot of value that we have to give to each other, and somehow we have to figure out how to get together on the same page with all of this and appreciate each other and value each other for what we bring to the table. Because this, once my generation's gone, we're not going to remember what it was like to actually have face-to-face conversations with people. And that was an art. According to today's standards, that was an art to be able to have a conversation. The students I work with, that is one of the biggest fears they have, is that they have to go talk to somebody face to face, or even use their phone to actually talk to somebody. Texting, that's easy. But using it as an actual phone, that is scary to them, which is so foreign to me.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I was going to ask, what is the biggest divide between the students that you teach, helping them to speak out. And it's funny. So you're helping them to speak out, but yet they're afraid to use the phone. And since the pandemic, I have to say, um, I used to be able to pick up the phone and all this, but now that we've had Zoom, and we've been in Zoom now for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, I have three shows here. I can talk like this,
Yeah.
and honestly, to pick up the phone, it takes something for me to push myself to do that even. And it wasn't that way before the pandemic, but now it is. And I feel very comfortable with Zoom because I want your facial expression. That doesn't mean I want to go have lunch with everybody. I'm okay with the Zoom meeting.
Exactly. It's so convenient. You don't have to fight traffic.
That's right.
You don't have to even be wearing shoes. I mean, it's so easy.
Or pants.
Exactly.
Or pants. I have a top on. You don't know what I have on the bottom.
Exactly.
It's funny. My husband says, "Well, as long as you have a shirt on, you're good." And I'm like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way. I am wearing pants. I'm actually in dress pants today." uh, which is highly unusual, because normally when I do come home from work, I put on comfy pants. And today I'm like, no, I'm going to act like the professional that I am.
Well, I feel honored. Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. I had to wear dress pants for the birthday girl. So
Thanks. I appreciate it.
absolutely. So other than, what are the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in business today to get to where you're at?
Oh gosh. Well, I have both a for-profit sole proprietor business that I've had since 2007. It started out as a dental management consulting firm because right out of high school, I put myself through dental assistant school and came out as a dental assistant, worked for about 10 years chair side. And then I moved into surgery and did that for 13 years, and then went into admin and then office management. And I did just about everything. And I came out of it going, what do I do with all that knowledge now? And so I started a consulting company. And then, I don't know, 5 or 6 years into that, I started to focus on the communication aspect of business. And I was working specifically with dental and medical practices. And I was noticing that communication was so poor that the doctors and dentists don't get business training. They don't get HR training. And so they generally are not very good employers. And they don't know how to hire and fire the right kind of people. And therefore, because they're the leader of the organization, the teams are just not communicating well. Well, it didn't necessarily make a profit really quickly. And so it was a hard sell to make. Soft skills are a hard sell. And so I had an opportunity because at the time I started to compete in this world championship of public speaking, international contest as a speaker. And I got an opportunity from a homeschool group that, I was sort of a local celebrity as I was preparing for this competition. They asked me if I'd come and do some public speaking classes for these 9 homeschool kids. And I said, hey, that kind of sounds like fun. I know what it's like to put together a speech. I can do that. And so I crafted some curriculum for this 9-week course that they wanted. And these kids were all in middle school. And I could see such a tremendous difference that it was making for these kids. I mean, the first couple of days we were together, they weren't really keen on eye contact. They would speak at really low volume and kind of mumble a little bit. But after the 3rd or 4th session, they were walking in there tall and they were booming their voice out. They were looking at each other. And as they spoke, they were sharing messages that perhaps they had never even talked about before. And I started to see this tremendous impact that it was making on them. So I started to develop more and more curriculum and start teaching more and more classes in my free time. And then I was successful at doing this and opened up a public speaking studio through my for-profit business, but then thought the public schools actually told me, well, unless you're a nonprofit, we can't bring your programs into the schools. And I knew that they were already working with some of the kids I wanted to be able to reach. So I thought, well, all right then, I'll just become a nonprofit then. So I did. So I started a nonprofit then too. The for-profit is the owner or the licensee of all of the curriculum, but the nonprofit now uses it to teach the kids. So challenges I've had have been, having these two businesses work in tandem, and nonprofits being kind of beat up, especially during the pandemic. A lot of people that were philanthropists to begin with during the pandemic sort of held back because they weren't sure what their future was going to hold. And I completely understand the mindset there, but it wasn't helpful for the kids that I was working with who really needed these programs. And I had to get creative in how I could bring them those programs, keep them safe and so forth. I really appreciate Zoom and all of these online platforms now that allow us to do that. So the challenges I've had really have been letting people know that we exist so that we can serve more kids, and getting the funding that will allow us to do the big things that we really want to do. So that's been the challenge.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. I've heard from so many nonprofits that everything is down this year. Everybody is out there, from kids to shelters and things like that. Everybody's just like, and it's Christmas time. It's the most wonderful time of the year until it's not. Um, and for a lot of people, like I help a lot of people in the mental health space, so I get it. It's not the greatest time, and on top of that, then you got the money things on top of that, and it's just a snowball effect. But and the pandemic sure did not help, that's for sure, in that regard.
Yeah, it did help. Actually, the advantages to the pandemic and being online, because when we opened up our studio, we were teaching kids in person in our local area. But then when we pivoted to online, the challenge was changing all of our curriculum now to be online friendly. But we started to expand our student base, because now I didn't have to just I stick to the local area, and we started getting kids interested that were in other states and then in other countries, and now we serve kids all around the world. And that is so awesome, because we can expand this mission that I never even knew was possible. So I thank the opportunity of the pandemic for that reason, that we were able to reach more kids, for sure.
Well, and I think I always say that it put us all at a even playing field. It really did. There are some upsides, there are some downsides. The upside being that we're all at an even playing field. The world is our oyster. There is no, well, unless your government tells you to, there is no, you could do business anywhere in the world. Unless you live in a state where you can, but right. I'm not a CPA, so don't go to your accountant. Don't quote me. Go to your accountant first.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting that, once the pandemic sort of started to ebb a little bit, and kids were back in school, they were online in school. Mm-hmm. And so here our programs were, when they were out of school, were a little bit popular, because parents knew that they still needed socialization, and this was a safe place to do it, virus free. But then when they went back to school and they were online for 6 hours a day in school, they didn't want them in an online class after school too. So there was another lull that we hit during that period of time. And I can understand parents thinking, I wouldn't want my kids online all day long too. Mm-hmm. But now, because so many businesses are operating this way, parents still ask me, well, isn't it better for the kids to be in person than online for your courses? And I say, it might be, but they now get to talk with kids all around the world. And this is training them for business, because mm-hmm. this is the way businesses are going to operate going into the future. And they're already going to have this sense of, I know how to do this, and I know how to present, and I know how to make my stage look appropriately, and I know how to get lighting and sound and that kind of thing, so that I'm empowered every time I speak. this is a great learning opportunity for the kids so that when they get to school and college and they get out in the workforce, this is going to be second hat to them, and they know how to do it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And so with that, then, my next question is always, well, what three things do you help your clients with? But you kind of alluded to that in that speaking, where, getting the kids even internationally together, that has got to be something too. They experience different cultures without even having to leave home. That's
that's right.
amazing.
And they're listening to each other and they're giving each other feedback. I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of our program is they become a team. And actually, some of the students have described it as a family. They become a family.
Mhm.
And with that family, they listen to each other and they provide feedback. And of course, one of our 4 rules is kindness. So everything you say needs to be done in a kind way. That doesn't mean you can't offer suggestions, but you can say, Billy, I really enjoyed the story that you shared. I got a little confused during this part, and I suggest that the next time you tell it, you make, more clear what was said or da 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 da. And when kids can learn how to give meaningful and helpful feedback, that is another aspect that I don't think they're getting in school. They're probably not learning how to do that even in college. And then they get in the workforce and they are prime management material if that's what they want to do, because they know how to, in a kind way, say, hey,
Mhm.
thank you for doing this. Might I suggest you do this because the outcome might be better? Da, 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 da. I mean, I know a lot of adults that don't have those skills that would be really helpful if they did. So our kids are learning at 10 years of age how to provide that helpful feedback in a kind and productive way. And so that's another powerful part of our programs.
Right. I love that. Yes, because you don't get that in school, and at least not in our schools.
You kind of get a grade on your paper, and that's the only feedback you get, right? When you're
right.
in school.
Yes. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation for a whole
Yeah.
other time. My stepson just got his intern report card, and I'm just like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It was pretty decent. It's just, he's 12. He doesn't want to be in school. He just wants to play video games all day, and like most 12-year-olds, and
Right.
things like that. And getting him into a program, something like this, I think that would be beneficial because, not only talking with kids in other cultures and countries, but that constructive feedback from your peers. Because when you get into the workplace, constructive criticism or feedback is necessary to grow, but some people who've never had it and who've been sheltered their whole life don't know how to take that, right?
Right.
And so by having that at an early age, it's totally beneficial. I could totally see that.
Well, yeah, and for the person receiving it, it's beneficial too because it teaches you that it's just somebody's opinion.
Mhm.
So take what they say at face value. If you find it valuable and you can actually apply what they're saying, excellent. But if you feel like you didn't quite get what I was saying or this isn't really helpful, then just go, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to,
Mhm.
do what they say if you don't feel it's authentic for you. And that in itself is a powerful skill to where we can listen to others and then say, that was helpful, or I appreciate your point of view. But you don't have to take it, and you can be kind at the same time. And that, again,
Exactly.
it's not something that they're being taught anywhere else.
No, exactly. And I love that you pointed that out. I love that. Absolutely. Constructive, take it or leave it, but don't let it sit with you, because a lot of people do that. Adults even too. I mean, I
Yeah,
get it.
absolutely. It's just somebody's opinion. Okay, I value your opinion, but I don't have to make it matter to me if I don't want to.
Exactly. Wow, Jackie. I can't believe this half hour went boom like
Ah,
that.
is it gone already?
It's gone already. Where is the best place for people to reach you?
Well, I have a hub of information that you can find just about everything about me, and it's JackieBailey360.com. JackieBailey360.com. you'll find my for-profit website, the nonprofit website. You'll find some videos from the kids. You'll find some programs that we've got going on. You'll find ways to donate to the nonprofit if you'd like to and support the programs and the kids that we're working with. Everything is there. All my social media is there as well, and access to my books and my author page on Amazon. So it's all there.
So go check Jackie out. I mean, Jackie's amazing. Let her help you mold your children to be the best versions of themselves. Shining with confidence, because we're a lot of adults are out there walking not with that. So start them off with the right path. Totally recommend that. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being here. Thank you for our listeners, and for those of you that are on the replay. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, be unstoppable in all that you do. Same time, same channel next week. And bye for now.
Thanks, Dorothy.